Do you know that Dave Kunst was the first person who walked across the entire world? But during this journey, Dave used airplanes to cross oceans. In his whole circumnavigation, Dave covered a total of 27,000 kilometers on foot, even if it was done in sections. But today, the person we're talking about isn't Dave. In fact, this person might be even more extraordinary than Dave. This man is determined to cross the world's longest continuous route entirely on foot. Yup, where our imagination usually stops, that's exactly where Carl Bushby's imagination begins. Not 5,000 kilometers, not 10,000, not even 25,000 kilometers. This man has already walked an unbelievable 47,000 kilometers on nothing but his own feet. And the crazy part, his journey still isn't over. 25 countries, 6 deserts, 7 mountain ranges. 27 years. One goal, to walk around the world completely unsupported. But how? Welcome back to Imagine What If. Today, we're talking about Carl Bushby, an ex-paratrooper from England who made the dangerous decision to walk the longest continuous path on Earth. On November 1st, 1998, he put just $500 in his pocket and began his journey from Punta Arenas, a city on the southern tip of Chile. Carl called this mission the Goliath Expedition. The plan was to walk across the entire American continent, then reach Russia, then Asia, and eventually walk back into his hometown in England. The total distance, 58,000 kilometers. Carl estimated that if he walked 19 kilometers a day, he could finish in about 8 years. But he had no idea that the challenges waiting for him would stretch this 8-year mission into more than 27 years, and it still hasn't ended. Carl set 2 strict rules for himself. No vehicles of any kind. No train, no car, no airplane, nothing motorized. Every single step had to be taken on foot. If he ever had to stop, he must resume from the exact spot of his last step. These rules sound simple, but Carl paid for them with years of loneliness, endless visa problems, and near-death experiences. South America, the beginning. Carl took his first step onto the rocky ground of South America. He faced scorching heat, wild terrain, and unpredictable landscapes. After leaving Chile, he mostly stayed close to the Pacific coast and the edge of the Andes Mountains, avoiding the dangerous core of the Amazon rainforest. But before entering Central America, his biggest challenges were weather and terrain. In Patagonia, he fought freezing winds. In the Andes, the longest mountain range in the world, climbing up and down on foot was almost impossible. In northern Chile, he crossed the Atacama Desert, one of the driest places on Earth, where water was more valuable than gold. Carl dragged a small 2-wheeled pushcart carrying food, clothes, and supplies. He once said, "In the Atacama, I only stopped walking when I found water." The Darien Gap, a living nightmare. Completing South America was a big achievement, but the real terror lay ahead. The Darien Gap, a 320-kilometer stretch of dense jungle between Colombia and Panama. Poisonous snakes, strange insects, guerrilla groups. Carl had to survive all of it. At the Panama border, he was even arrested by Panamanian police and jailed for 18 days. After being released, he returned to the exact point where he had stopped to honor his rule: Central America and the United States. Crossing Central America wasn't easy either. Every small country meant new visa headaches. Border crossings ate up huge amounts of time. By 2002, he finally entered the United States. He walked on endless highways, dodged traffic, and survived the brutal heat of the Sonoran Desert, even hotter than Atacama. By 2005, he reached Canada and Alaska, where everything changed again. Extreme cold, snowstorms, and isolated terrain. Sometimes he used old dog sled trails to pack down snow, but he refused to use dogs because that would count as outside assistance. The Bering Strait, his most dangerous challenge. To enter Russia from Alaska, Carl had to cross the Bering Strait, a frozen ocean. But the ice here never stays still. Massive sheets drift on the waves, and gaps of open water appear between them. Carl even had to swim through freezing Arctic water from one ice sheet to another, constantly risking hypothermia. He and French adventurer Dmitry Kiefer completed the 240-kilometer crossing in 14 sleepless days, fighting violent Arctic storms. But when they reached Russia, they were arrested. Even though Carl had a valid visa, the authorities claimed the Bering Strait wasn't an official port of entry. He was deported back to the UK. His journey could have ended here, but by now, Carl was famous. With help from British Deputy Prime Minister John Prescott and Russian billionaire Roman Abramovich, Carl was granted special permission to continue his walk in Russia. Still, his visa was only valid for 90 days at a time, meaning he constantly had to leave the country and re-enter, losing months in the process. In 2008, he ran out of funding and was stuck in Mexico for 2 years. Finally, in 2011, he re-entered Russia and continued walking across Siberia, a place where one wrong step on thin ice could kill you instantly. For 9 months a year, he waited on visa issues. For 3 months a year, he walked. Then, in 2013, he got shocking news. Russia banned him for 5 years. Carl didn't quit. He chose a different protest. He walked 4,800 kilometers from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C., and stood outside the Russian embassy. The media picked up the story, and Russia lifted the ban in 2014. Carl returned to the exact GPS point in Siberia where he had stopped. Mongolia, China, Central Asia. He crossed the 1,130-kilometer Gobi Desert in Mongolia. From China, he walked into Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan, but once again, Iran's visa stopped him. The pandemic locked him in Turkmenistan for a long time. When Iran still didn't approve his visa, Carl made a life-threatening decision. He would swim across the Caspian Sea to Azerbaijan. He used a small kayak, not for himself, but for his gear, and swam 288 kilometers over 31 days, 6 hours a day. He slept on the kayak at night. He said, "I don't like swimming, but I had to do it." He reached Azerbaijan and continued walking. Turkey to Europe, nearly home. In 2025, Carl entered Turkey from Azerbaijan. He had become so famous that villagers invited him into their homes for meals everywhere he went. Speaking to BBC, he said he would never forget the hospitality of Turkish people. In Istanbul, he needed to cross the Bosphorus Strait to enter Europe. The bridge only allows cars, but the authorities made an exception just for Carl. He walked across it and officially entered Europe. He joked, "When I started, Tony Blair was Prime Minister. Now the UK has had 5 new Prime Ministers. When I finally return, the country might feel new to me." After 27 years of walking, only 3,000 kilometers remain. His final stretch includes Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, Austria, Germany, and France before returning to the UK. But one last big challenge awaits: the Channel Tunnel between France and the UK. Walking in the main tunnel is strictly forbidden. It's high-speed trains, extreme heat, and low oxygen. There is a service tunnel, but Carl needs special permission to use it. If all goes well, Carl Bushby is expected to finish the Goliath expedition in 2026, having walked 58,000 kilometers, which is 1.5 times the circumference of Earth. His journey proves that human limits are mostly imagined. When we think life has stopped moving, remember this: Carl Bushby is still walking. As he once said, "Life doesn't stop, it just changes its path." We hope you enjoyed this video from Imagine What If. Don't forget to like and share. Thanks for all your loving comments. See you in the next amazing video.